Good evening, dear viewers. Glad to meet you all. This is Feygin Live. Today is Monday, August 8th, 1 minute past 10. And this is day 166 with our friend Olexiy Arestovich. Glad to have you here, Olexiy. Good evening, everybody. Alright, we skipped yesterday, so we have some news over the last 48 hours. Over 113 people are watching us live. Over 20,000 click the like button. Big ask, please subscribe if you have not done that yet to Feygin Live, Arestovich channel, and of course to the privateer station if you are watching that in English.
Ну и, конечно, канал Алексея Арестовича по ссылке его имени в описании к этому видео можете пройти и обязательно подписаться там. Это как-то лучше воспринимается.
So again, please subscribe to both channels. We do have different videos there, and of course to the privateer station. We're translating select best from the eastern side of the world, Eastern Europe. All right. So Kharkiv, the same. To the northwest of the city, they're trying to go do some minor tactical offensive moves, but keep failing near Dementivka. Now let's go to Izyum. You can see an arrow at 11, red arrow to Gusarovka. They're trying to push back and get it back and have no success. But near Dovgenkova, where there was a serious and scary Russian offensive planning, Dovgenkova is already ours, so we pushed them back. So that protrusion towards Izyum from the left, Levkivka and these places, how dangerous is it for them? So if you look straight south from Izyum, all that Dovgenkova area that was held by enemy, and now it's not. No, now it's not. Now it's ours. We were pushing them back. We're hitting them and pushing them back. Some very interesting outlines are appearing. Very curious. They're similar to some ones that have happened to Ukrainian army early in the war, and it's possible that at some point there'll be some surrounding happening. Is it happening because they moved some troops away from it? Well, actually, there is a cadre Russian army, 20th Army is still there. They have not moved anywhere. They were not moved to the south. No, this is probably the only area in Donbas that they did not touch. And that is the group that we are pushing back. Several villages have been liberated, which was not easy. They had more troops there than we did. And they actually tried to recapture them back yesterday, but failed. So this is an interesting news that may be hidden behind the overall attention to Kherson area, but this is successful counteroffensive by Ukrainian army, which is rather painful for Putin's troops, and we'll see what it will come down to. Now let's go down south to Siversk. They're still trying all these red arrows on the right between 3 and 6 p.m. They keep pushing, but don't have much success. They approached closer to Bakhmut. They did take Pokrovska, and in Klinovo they got closer to Zaitsevo. This is a difficult situation for us. Near Kadema also, to the south, the second arrow from the bottom. And the enemy advanced on the flanks, but the fights continue. We're solving our tasks, enemy is solving theirs, so we'll see which tasks would be strategically better. Now let's go south from Avdiivka to Mariinka. They continue trying to attack Veselaya. Avdiivka is to the top area of the arrows. Yes, here, that's where they zoomed in. Below Avdiivka, they're trying to get to Pisky, and that situation keeps changing. A lot of artillery. Both sides are heavy hitting each other, as if, hitting each other with heavy baseball bats on their heads, trying to figure who can stand longer. So Pisky, they're not taken by Russian military. Despite the regular reports that they have taken another 5 yards, Pisky is still ours. Grandiose fighting for Ukraine these days has been reduced to the fight for the cow farm on the border of Pisky. That's a definite achievement for Putin's forces. Marinka, no success to move to it from Alexandrovka, that solo arrow in the middle. Did not have any success. Kherson area finally started to move. We've been waiting for that day for a long time. So what happened? Brave Putin's airborne troops decided to move to the west from Snegurovka, because that is the shortest direction to Nikolaev. They're trying also to attack to Novopetrovka. No success there. There's 2 to 4 battalion tactical groups. We can't even say if they're the main push or the secondary one, so distraction motion. So it is hard to tell for now. They just started moving and there are some tactical fighting. 3, 4, 6 battalion groups versus unnamed number of hours. A bit to the south, they also decided to move. I'll tell you when. Hang on. Izyum. If you look to the south, there is a place called... There is a, generally saying, more to the south, Novonikolaevka. From Lyubomirovka to Novogrigorievka they tried to move. And they were thinking that they were coordinating these moves as if it is the... Yeah, that's at the bottom part. That's the 6 o'clock area where they... there is a road, actually more like 6, 7, the one they wanted to follow. They also brought several battalion tactical groups, put them to the north of Kherson. You can see the green tents above Kherson at 3, 4 p.m. So they placed some reinforcements there. And in the next couple days, we should understand where is the main direction, or the direction of main hit. So for now, what I'm seeing from their activity, it's either a secondary, different maneuver to distract our attention, or perhaps they'll be pushing everywhere to see where they can have some success and then reinforce that area. During the last couple days, I would not name certain things, but I would suggest that our viewers connect certain things, that our Air Force got some support in the last package, some anti-air defense missiles, and very low Russian activity in Kherson area against our aircraft. So I'll name the lower number that was reported, 4 S-300s and 2 Panzers. Radio location units and anti-air defense were destroyed. A missile type of harm that is a pretty heavy munition, so when it hits the station, it pretty much disintegrates. So now they're sitting there pretty sad about it. They did make a blip in the report of the Western support about a month ago. Nobody really reacted much to that, but, well, here they are. We also hit the bridges to Kherson. and we hit that bridge again, Andreevsky Most. We hit the same part that we hit before. Are they repairing it? Yeah, they are, but we keep hitting the same part, so they can only use one of the, basically half of the bridge width-wise, so they cannot move anything heavy over it, maybe just light vehicles. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that we worked on Melitopol yesterday. Did take out about 100 of their troops, including high-level officers, because we did hit the command posts, so they would not be too relaxed on that front. So that's what's happening. We have about 300,000 watching us live. 30,000 plus already clicked the like button. Please share the links. Don't forget to do that. Now, let's talk about Zaporozhye electric station. Nuclear power plant, actually. So, Russians are saying that Ukraine is shooting up their own nuclear plant, right? The country that survived Chernobyl is targeting Zaporozhye. But the fact itself that you captured that and now claiming that Ukraine keeps shelling the station. But what I wanted to bring up is that one of the generals, I will not bring his name up, but he was in his statement saying that there'll be nothing here, it'll be either Russian land or we'll just blow everything up. Like we planted explosives all over the station. It kind of looks overall pretty infernal if they want to create a second super Chernobyl there. How do you react to that? Do you think that's plausible, that they can just blow the thing up if Ukrainian military will be pushing them out? I think they're begging for negotiations. So you think that's blackmail, that's a form of blackmail? We'll create you a second mega Chernobyl or sit down and talk to us. Yes, they are begging for negotiations, that's obvious for us, because it did not work out with grain. Let's do it, try to do it with nuclear. But it's keep failing. Keeps failing again for them. So do you think there is no basis that they planted explosives on the nuclear plant? They could have, and they can keep threatening, but does it help them? It does not alleviate anything that they face now, and we're not going to negotiate with them. So it's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. This is an attempt to blackmail us. Do you think they will not go for blowing up the station? No, I don't think so. Okay, personally I think every second one is a fucktard there, capable of doing it, but I respect your opinion. Now that Baletsky, what's his name, he said that referendum will be held in Kherson. I think me and you discussed that will be between 11th or 20th. So he, as I've stated, that on the 20th there'll be a referendum in Zaporozhye. Official in his whatever capacity of an occupant there. And you think he discussed that with Moscow? Of course he did, and I think that's part of the whole blackmail. Zaporozhye nuclear plant is being attacked as if, getting ready to explode, and then there are messages coming that they're discussing with local citizens who are sleeping and dreaming to join Russian Federation. Russia has nothing to do with it, it's just people who want to join Russia. And then Peskov comes out with support from Kremlin. It's very visible, the whole move. It reminds me of the Sherlock Holmes. I expected something more original from you. And on one hand, I understand people may be afraid of that nuclear threat, but on the other hand, it's 21st century. They've read too much Pelevin. They do like that author in Russia. He actually is accepted pretty high up in Kremlin because, he's a friend with Surkov and... Yep. So you think these things are connected? Zaporozhye nuclear plant. Well, yeah, it is. They're not afraid too much in Kherson now. They're afraid in Zaporozhye, and they're creating conditions that, in case of our counteroffensive, would give them some framework to scream and threaten the whole world with a nuclear threat, nuclear disaster. Look, there are some citizens who decided to voluntarily join Russia, and Ukraine is now suppressing them. So that's the framework they likely will be defending in case of our counteroffensive. And at the same time, they're also pushing for negotiations. Let's sit down, let's be reasonable. Mark, it's, yeah, there's different things. Okay, expected. Now, about the weapons, we expected that on Monday there'll be made an announcement. They did, but I haven't seen ATACMS there, the 300-mile one. Well, but there is a line item that says missiles for HIMARS. Well, there are different kinds of missiles. 80, 120, 160, 270. I don't know which ones will be there, but this line implies an assortment. So one can consider that maybe there'll be a 300 miles radius missiles. Who knows, but if you read... So if you read in details, they were mentioned that they're supplying missiles to the missile system that is called what? Is there an official mentioning that these systems were ever supplied in the listing? So if these complexes were never mentioned in the full listing published, but the missiles are being supplied, so what do you mean? Well, if you do some deduction here, it means that missiles are usually supplied for the systems. If the systems were not announced, that perhaps, but they're supplying missiles, perhaps systems are already here on the front. So I don't know, and I'm not making statements here, but if the system was not delivered and the missiles are, there may be a little bit of discrepancy here. Another note, they did tell us that they'll be supplying us continuously the anti-radar systems. So, the last package, $1 billion, is a good amount. It's a lot. And it will affect the battlefront. All right. We have some fun things. Russian Federation is claimed to have lost 70 to 80,000. Jack Deutsch in Foreign Post posted that article, of course, with a link to unknown sources in Pentagon. He says this is the estimate by Pentagon. During the last 5 months, Jack Deutsch. This is an authorized account on Twitter. I'm looking at it right now. 70 to 80,000. This is close. This is pretty close to what Ukraine says. Actually, very close to what Ukraine military is claiming. Ukraine Central Command is claiming that Russians have lost. So it probably includes both wounded and dead, right? Yeah, that's probably what they're called medical losses. Some of them. Basically, this includes everybody who has left the front for more than a day. Usually it's wounded and dead. There is another statistics for just dead, but generally, yeah, it matches. It's about 40,000 dead. And that's roughly what it is, because their current ratio with the poor medical support is 1 to 2, so 2 dead, 1 wounded. That roughly comes to the same number. And they did count them separately also. They don't count DNR and LNR, those fake republics. Why so? Well, Russia considers them to be separate countries. They got their fake embassies in Moscow, so these numbers are not part of the official stats. and they're again mobilizing whomever they did not find earlier in those regions. So they're grabbing everybody. Nobody can stay. We even on the factories that we monitor, we got different intel resources. They're picking every male of the right age. And the other task, they're also targeting the ones who are bucking back and don't want to continue fighting. They're actually throwing them near Avdiivka, near Pesky. They're burying their active fighters, the ones who refuse to continue fighting or to continue that line. So they're basically burying everybody. So if you refuse, what happens? Oh, it's very rough there. If you refuse to go fighting, can they shoot you? Yep, there have been many cases of that. They, at the very least, would put you somewhere in the basement real quickly, and then, there are known cases of them killing those who resist. So what their option is? Well, they're hiding, but can they? It takes a long time, It's usually women going shopping there, male hiding. Male population is hiding in the areas, but they're also visiting the houses, right? Yeah, they're using police to visit and to find everybody they can. But it's difficult. It's very difficult to keep hiding for, half a year already? Remember that story, the pianist who was hiding in the apartment in Warsaw, Second World War? Yeah, that's a rough story. Is there any plan, any opportunity for them to flee to Ukraine? I don't know if they're loyal, but the ones who don't want to fight. Mark, what real plan can we realize in those occupied territories? I don't know. Maybe you have any. Maybe you've heard of any. I frankly don't really see anything. Is there a chance for them to get out? They maybe can through some connections and bribes. But again, this would be select few who can do that, who can afford that. But far from everybody. Most people probably don't have this option. Those with connections might, but even that is iffy. It's a huge tragedy for our people that essentially is Putin's regime forcing Ukrainians to kill Ukrainians on the other side. And that's what happens. They capture territory after some form of referendum. They'll start conscribing people in Kherson and Zaporozhye areas. Right now in Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, they're already doing that, trying to get everybody male there and they're speeding up their referendum thingies to afford for so-called legal draft. Yeah, that's a difficult question. Okay, so in the news, tomfoolery continues that the head of the Zaporozhye region, it's nice, he called himself the head of the Zaporozhye region, the occupied one. He should have called himself President of the Moon. So he signed that, there'll be a referendum for joining Russia. Now about Erdogan meeting with Russia. There are voices on the Western press, very concerned ones, that Turkey, with its behavior, may end up having some sanctions levied against it. Because of the negotiations they held with Russia and some agreements that allow Russia to circumvent certain sanctions of the West. And by the way, Erdogan has not met Kadyrov. Kadyrov was brought to see him, but nobody met him. So Kadyrov was just taking pictures with Shoigu, because Putin wanted him to partake in that negotiation, but that did not happen. So, in your opinion, how real is such a segregation of Turkey from the monolithic West and certain sanctions against it? Well, I know there is a discussion about that. The discussion can be summed that Turkish policy and politics cause a lot of disagreement because it basically is unallowable in the shape it is now because it goes against the enemy state that was called as an enemy state by NATO in the recent conference. And this is a very disloyal behavior. So here Turks are walking a thin razor line with the NATO complex because many countries are already voicing their concern and saying there should be measures taken. I don't know how it will end, but it probably will be some inner NATO squabble. But the fact that one of the NATO members is playing so tight with the country that is officially recognized as strategic opponent of NATO, so they're already discussing the options that some of the Western banks may withdraw from Turkey, which is not good for Turkey at this point. They had, 180% inflation. I'm not sure if it's stabilized or not, but it's difficult times there. This is a complex question, which mostly can be formulated as can the NATO leave it without any response? Perhaps the response may be behind the scenes kind of way, some agreements and some punishments, but they need to take certain measures because after they announce that we agree that this country is a strategic opponent and somebody steps out and decides to negotiate with them separately and alleviate the weight of sanctions, and Turkey is getting super profits from Russia at the moment, increasing the trade, supplying different things. So that definitely causes certain strain between Turkey and NATO countries. What will be the outcome? What will be the shape of it is still a question to discuss, but discussion has started. That's significant, okay. Also, they're saying that maybe, perhaps, as a result of these nuclear threats, there may be additional sanctions against Russia in the nuclear sphere. Yeah, this is a serious situation for the world's security, so claims like that should not be overlooked. And I think MAGATE Commission, that Nuclear International Commission, is going to try to visit. And Russia said they're eager to let them. Oh, perfect, even better. Because after that, there'll be some statements and sanctions likely connected to that, because there is an international group that is in charge of controlling the nuclear safety. And such a decision the West would usually make after organization of that kind does investigation into the matter. And that's a big thing, because nuclear blackmail, that is something that should not be just let happen. So I suspect that this blackmail would not lead Russia to any good negotiations for them, and likely will have some pretty bad circumstances, bad consequences. Oh, that's a funny one. The government of Russian Federation signed an agreement with Donetsk People Republic for recognition of scientific awards and scientific titles between two. That makes me laugh. Pushilin, their head, can now be the Academy of Sciences of Donetsk Independent People Republic. And that guy, who probably will award himself an academic status. And his cronies, gangsters, will get the status of PhDs and professors. I am the candidate of economics of sciences, but they probably won't even let me shit next to him in the bathroom with all his titles after all that surreal announcements. You know, somebody said very pointedly that Russia actually joined itself to Donetsk and Lugansk fake republics. At first, they wanted to sign some agreement to make Ukraine join these republics in some fashion, but now they actually ended up joining themselves to that. Nuclear country with space program, member of the Security Council of United Nations, the one that considers itself follower of the USSR, of the legacy, has joined Pushilin and his fake criminal republics. I don't know if there is anywhere lower to fall. This is just pure madness. But we have what we have. I was thinking, how is it for Russians who still have conscience to keep hearing all that, hearing and seeing that in the news? The country just turned into a caricature of itself, and there is a big discussion among Russians. I was pulled into that somehow. On Radio Freedom, they showed a video with me, which called a very lively discussion. And I think our guilt of Russian opposition that we could not remove Putin from power with all the consequences, this is our guilt. And then the discussion is around what's the responsibility of the West. And there is a big, notable part of Russian opposition, not the majority, but definitely a notable group, that the West is responsible. And they are saying that since the West was feeding Putin money from oil and natural gas, now it's the West's problem. And we're hiding in the house and we'll wait till everything blows over. And perhaps bring Ukrainians or somebody else to kick him out of Kremlin. You know, like back in the medieval times when Poles kicked or replaced Russian Tsar. Or maybe the West will do something, and we're not responsible for that. So there is a group like that. And that discussion continues. This is counterproductive. It's a sort of historical freeloading of an active part, not the brainwashed ones. Those are brainwashed. That's like Dogville, Lars von Trier's Dogville, who said just burn it down because nothing will grow here. But the active ones who could have created some resistance and created a circumstance for reanimation of the government and replacement and all that. But it's also corrupted from another side. There is a feeling of why us? So that exists. You know, Mark, we need to define the terms here. I don't think there is a collective blame, but there definitely is a collective responsibility. So responsibility is in the legal field. Blame is more of a moral. I'm sure blame is there. Okay, maybe no legal, but there definitely is moral responsibility on the Russian citizens that this monster is ruling you for 22 years and creating these events throughout the world, killing people in Syria, bombing hospitals in Ukraine. Today is also the day when the war in Georgia started. That was allowed to happen and no conclusions were made out of it. It's what, 14 years now? So the West, of course, partook in that, yes. They let him grow up, they considered him to be a partner, and they fed him and gave money to him and shook his hands. So I think everybody deserves part of a blame here. And if he is an existential enemy for us, then who is he for the West? They did outline Russia as the strategic opponent, who is Putin for them. And of course, Putin is the person who brainwashed most of population, who jailed most of opposition, who was blowing houses in his own country, killing hundreds of people, who was poisoning citizens. So being a citizen of Russia, if I would have been feeling shame, a huge shame to even represent Russia in some capacity, being Russian, because that monster is now associated with Russian politics throughout the world. There's a whole generation, 22 years, that grew up under him. And just the feeling of incredulity that this moth is ruling this country. And the line of front, kind of internal, is going through the West, through Ukraine, through Russia. And I think it's all three sides need to fight it. And what we need to do is not tear the hairs out, but coordinate our efforts to remove the problem as it is. Because it is not it is a not productive approach to keep blaming oneself without doing anything. Yeah, because that can go in circles. We are to blame. No, best thing is not to repeat these mistakes. Best to look in the future and find ways to resolve the problem now. And there are ways to remove Putin's regime, and that needs to be coordinated and performed in some manner. Right now, they're very concrete and practicable tasks. Self-flagellation is good for the first 5 minutes of your statement. After that, you need to continue with actions that need to be taken to resolve the situation. Also, it's kind of referring back in the history when he just joined the. You can be, have 20/20 rare vision. When he just joined the power, could anyone tell that he is that bad? Oh, for me, absolutely, Olexiy. When he came to 99, after all these explosions with the houses that he that his regime did, killing people, we could see it back then. But there is another group, Mark, that says he got Chechnya under control, that he controlled the oligarchs, raised the salaries, and it was not too bad under him, and he let Russia raise from its knees in economic position. And then Syria, Georgia. So there is a big chunk of Russian population, the way I see, that supports him still. Yeah. All right, 37.5 minutes. We've been live. Almost 436,000 are watching us. Over 140,000 clicked the like button. We have a stream tomorrow at 10. No, we'll miss one tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? Oh, I have a trip, sorry. Wednesday. All right, we'll miss that one. Our friend will be gone, but let's take a look at this. In Nikolaev, we found a potential victim whom we want to help. So there was a publication on the 8th of August. Korabelov info. There's a story about wounded people during the Russian shelling. When we're going to the church, something blew up over our heads. We fell into the tree, the limbs were falling around. So the guy was concerned about his 13-year-old son, and if he was rendered incapacitated to move. He got his feet damaged. So we do have some contacts of Victoria, who is a sister of Maxim. So yeah, if you guys can help us, there is an account, Krutylova Victoria. there's some data here about them, but it's important for us to actually reach out to them and discuss that situation so we can provide directional help. If there is anybody from Nikolaev who's watching us, please send us their contacts so we can figure it out and send our support to them. So we have roughly about 300,000 Ukrainian hryvnias. With that merch, we'll send it directly from Ukraine, so it'll be quick. Please help us find the recipients, the usual couple thousand euros equivalent in hryvnias. If you have information, please send it over. Feygin, feiginlive@gmail.com. And everybody else, in about a day, we'll have an impressive new line of merch. New design is being finished, and this will be very pointed to the current events. So if you have not yet purchased anything, come visit in a day or two. All right. Olexiy, sorry to let you go today and that we will not have it tomorrow. Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is good. And the last thing I wanted to bring today, there's Vera Pavlova, very well-known poet. She dedicated a poem to us. I have not seen the poem, but I know her very well. She wrote, that poem. We'll pin that in the translation. We'll leave you till Wednesday, and we'll meet you on Wednesday at 10 p.m. I'll have other streams tomorrow, so come back tomorrow. And we're waiting for news from Nikolaev. Goodbye.